Folks, welcome back to another episode of Coffee, Tea, and Crime. Today's episode sounded like cannons. Alright folks, today we're going to be in Huntington, West Virginia. This is a case that occurred back in 2005. Now, it is legally unsolved, but as we'll see while we're going through the story, the police know who the shooter is, they know who ordered the homicides, and they just can't get it into court. So May 22nd, 2005, it's about 4:30 in the morning. Now, the four victims, Donta Ward, Eddrick Clark, Michael Dillon, Megan Poston, they all arrive at address 1400 block of Charleston Avenue. Now, that address, that was where Donta Ward was living. He rented out one of the apartments there in that house. Now, Dillon and Poston, they had been at the prom that night as a couple. Now, according to the school superintendent, they were supposed to be at the school in a lock-in. That lock-in occurred after the dance. Now, the superintendent went on to say that their names were not on the registration sheet. So I don't know if either set of parents assumed that's where they were at or not. I would think if the parents didn't believe they were at the school at the lock-in, I can't believe they wouldn't have made phone calls prior to 4:30 in the morning to start looking for their kid. So I think the parents probably were under the assumption those two were somewhere else or was supposed to be somewhere else. So we know that the four victims got out of however many cars they arrived, and they are in the area of the driveway near the corner of the house. I believe it's the corner of the house next to the driveway for that residence. I don't know which apartment belonged to Ward. Now, the witnesses said they were awakened by a bevy of gunshots and screaming. And then it was quiet for just a second. And then they heard a girl say, "Please don't shoot me, please don't shoot me." Now, one of the witnesses, a 12-year-old little girl, said she looked out her window and she saw two bodies. Another witness corroborated the first witness with the gunshots, the begging, additional gunshots. Now, nobody saw the suspect vehicle or the suspect. Now, another witness, an ear witness, said that he heard the female say, "Please don't kill me, I'm sorry." Now, I don't know if that's a general "I'm sorry" or if she actually knew what it was the shooter was upset about. I don't know. Police don't. So now EMS is called, the police are called. 3 of the teenage victims, they're dead on the scene. Now, the 4th one died at the hospital a little later. Resource material makes no mention as if the 4th victim was able to say anything before they died. Evidently, they did not. So now the police are working this crime scene. They find out that Ward, who had an apartment within that house, had been there about 2 months. Now, they talked to the neighbors and they said he wasn't any trouble. He was sociable and friendly. In fact, he had graduated from Huntington High School 2 years prior to this. So now the police start getting information. The first thing they're starting to hear and they're developing is that this is a hit targeting Donta Ward. Supposedly there's some link to a Detroit drug dealer or dealers, and that they're trafficking crack cocaine in Huntington. Now, Huntington's population of 50,000, so it's not just a huge big old city, and they don't generally get killings of this magnitude. Now, the police got information that identified a female. Said that this female, who was evidently a medium-level, high-level dope dealer, she had ordered the killing. According to stories the police were getting, they're saying Ward had ripped her off for some marijuana and or money. and that she wanted him killed. Now, of course, she denied it and her attorneys denied it. Interesting fact with this particular suspect, who was originally from Detroit, she was convicted in federal court for a murder case involving narcotics trafficking. Now, she was sentenced to life in federal prison. So it makes you think there may be some truth to these stories that she ordered this hit. Now, by the next day, the police are conducting search warrant, and they're hitting a particular house. This house is supposed to be where the shooter's at. So Huntington they were doing their job now. They were rolling on this. And during that search warrant, they recovered some pistols that belonged to an individual who was allegedly the shooter. And neither one of those weapons was the weapon used in the killing. Now, the FBI in Detroit is telling Huntington police they got 3 CIs that are saying that that female suspect who ordered the killing, allegedly she brought in some shooters from Detroit, which doesn't jive with the other part of the story, because the other part of the story that's going to come from a co-defendant, the shooter was the individual that lived there in Huntington. Alright, so now they interview a witness. He begins his statement as a witness, but now he tells police that he was a getaway driver for the killings and that he was there during the killings. Now that makes him a co-defendant. But in any event, you got a co-defendant, and he's telling you dude did the killing. Now, dude, the one they executed the search warrant on, that was over there on Marshall Avenue in Huntington. Now, he said, so he's driving, shooters, gets out, kills all 4 of the individuals, gets back in the car, they drive down to the river, the Ohio River, and the shooter throws the pistol into the river, and they leave. Alright, so fine. That's a good statement. And that statement's good enough to get you that search warrant. That's the search warrant that the police served over there on Marshall. And as I mentioned now, they recovered 2 pistols. Now, the 2 pistols, neither one was used in the homicide, but the shooter, and this is probably going to come as a shock to some of you, the shooter is convicted violent felon. So now the feds have got him, because he's going to get at least 10 years for that charge. But now the shooter, he doesn't want to talk. I guess he figures 4 counts of first-degree murder, and this is going to be involving narcotics, so that's an enhancement to the murder charges. It's not going to go well for him. Now, since they did not charge the shooter with the killings, evidently they didn't get enough evidence to corroborate a co-defendant statement, because you have to have that. You can't take a co-defendant statement and use it to charge somebody out with those 4 counts of murder unless you can corroborate his statement, or at least parts of it. Now, I'm assuming that they talked to him about where the bodies were laying at the scene and who he shot first, and because you're trying first to establish that this co-defendant is actually telling the truth, that he was there, and second, you're looking for corroboration of what he's telling you because you want to get the shooter. Assuming they asked him what part of the river he threw the pistol in, on and on and on. But whatever happened, it was not enough to charge the shooter with the killings, which is very frustrating. Now, I've included in this story the information presented by the appellate court there in West Virginia. And this appellate court was hearing the appeals of the shooter on his gun charge, which, by the way, he lost that appeal. But it does provide some information that at least tells you what the police know, and they know pretty well everything. They just can't prove it. not enough to get it into court.